Welcome to the Craft of Coaching podcast, where we dive into what it truly takes to become a skilled, confident life coach. I'm your host, Kate, head of the CLCC, or Certified Life Coach Collective, an ICF-accredited Level 1 coach training program. We combine courage, coaching, and community to offer you more than just a training program, but a life-changing experience where you use your own personal transformation as the learning ground for supporting your clients. On this podcast, we explore how you can use coaching skills to support your clients or expand your own growth, all grounded in evidence-based coaching practices. Learn more about our program and get free resources for becoming a life coach at teamclcc.com. And now, here's today's episode. Today's topic is so near and dear to my heart because we're talking about helping clients to change habits. And the reason this topic is so near and dear to me is because after years of being a coach and building a business and studying different approaches to client work, something kind of amazing happened and I inked a book deal, which was a lifelong dream for me. If you had asked me when I was a little girl what I wanted to be when I grew up, I would have said, I want to write books. And then I went on to do what most writers do, which was I submitted proposals and got rejected, like over and over and over. I want to make sure I say that part in case you're someone walking through these trenches. And as I kept trying and trying and trying, there were absolutely times where I worried that I wasn't good enough and all of that. But then eventually it happened. My book is called The Courage Habit. So today's topic of helping clients to change habits is going to be tied to some of the things I talk about in The Courage Habit. And I use stories from my experience as a coach, obviously changing names, identifying information. The literal details of client sessions are not in this book, but I talk a lot about how I've supported clients in changing their habits. And then of course, how I've changed a lot of my own habits as well. So you can find the book on Amazon, you can order it through your local bookstore, things like that. So let's get into helping clients to change habits. And in particular, I want to start with this place of why clients struggle to sustain change. And certainly you can take this on as your own personal growth work as a coach, because we all have habits, including myself, where we would like to change them. We're going, I want to do something different with my life, and I got to figure out how. And I have this plan and this idea of how I'm going to do it, and then somehow I can't quite do it. What's going on with that? So here's what I've noticed as someone who is a life coach, really just as someone who's a human, right? Myself, friends, family. What I notice is that people do understand that they need to take steps in the direction of the change they want. And often they'll even start that process. But then they lose steam or they back off. Something derails them. When clients come to me for one-on-one coaching, they usually know what they want. Usually they're not unclear about that. What's hard is taking the action to get there and the fear that gets them stuck, and then also sustaining the action needed to truly make meaningful change. Because starting something and then losing steam is not a recipe for success. So when I began writing The Courage Habit, I actually dove into the psychology of courage and the science of habit formation, because I see these parallels between the two. And essentially a question that I was asking myself is, can courage or courageous behavior become a habit? And what are the fear-based habits that we get stuck in that have us not even seeing how close the answers are to what it is that we are asking for, or how close the results are that we desire? So let's get a little bit into how habits are formed. And when you understand some of this, it will make your craft of coaching when you work with your one-on-one clients even easier. Habits are controlled by the basal ganglia. Now, I'm going to be very reductive, by the way, with all of this. Somebody who is a neuroscientist would say, well, the basal ganglia is involved, other places are involved. I understand all of that, but I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. There is a part of the brain called the basal ganglia. I think of this part of the brain as being like the project manager of the brain. It is processing lots of input, and it's trying to streamline or project manage responses to that input. And one thing I found in my research was that the brain prefers, we could say loves, routines. It loves routines. It loves what is expected. Now, sometimes, of course, that's not the case. Humor, for instance, is often the result of something unexpected being said that surprises the brain. Sometimes we crave novelty and newness, but a lot of times in terms of feeling safe, and especially when something is stressful or uncertain, or we feel insecure about it, we would really prefer certainty. We'd prefer the routine. When you experience stress or fear, your brain wants the quickest possible way to alleviate it. And so I started to look at what are the habitual pathways when it comes to stress and fear. And that's where habits come in. Habits run on a cue, routine, reward loop. For example, you feel a cue, like you have a big goal you want to go after. And so you feel stress about it. In response to that stress, you probably go into some kind of a routine. As a result of going into that routine, assuming that it's one that is designed to alleviate stress, you get the reward, which is that the stress goes down. What I started to explore is what are those routines that we go into? If we live in a world where we're gonna feel stress if we go after a big goal, and then somehow people get caught in these routines or patterns that don't serve them and have them end up exactly where they left off, what's going on there? And what I found was that we can't really interrupt the cue because we live in a world where stress is going to happen. And I don't think that we can change habits just by tweaking the reward. Maybe we can, but for a lot of people, even knowing that they're going to get some kind of a reward is not enough to pull them out of the routine. The routine is the place where the habit reinforces itself. And therefore, the routine is the place we need to look at. So as I delved into the research even more and I started to look at archetypes of fear, I found that there were 4 predominant fear-based routines that people go into. And these are routines that are fear-based that keep you stuck. And my hypothesis in the courage habit is that if you can learn to identify when you are going into these fear-based routines and instead of going into fear-based routines, choose courageous practices, you will rewire your habits. You will go from stress about a big goal to a routine that keeps you stuck and a reward that is really only temporary and fleeting and not really the reward you want, to stress about a big goal, because you're not going to get out of that part, going into a routine that maybe is a fear-based pattern that you then interrupt so you can get the larger reward of truly feeling better. Now let's get into those routines. And with your client work, if you want to help your clients to change their habits, the more you can help your clients have a language for these fear-based routines or patterns, the easier it is to identify them, articulate them when they're happening, and interrupt them. So, the 4 most common fear-based routines are perfectionism, people-pleasing or martyrdom, self-sabotage, and pessimism. Perfectionism, working yourself into the ground to feel in control, thinking that you have to do it all perfectly, waiting to take action until you've done it all perfectly. People-pleasing, putting other people's needs ahead of your own. Self-sabotage could look like choosing the worst possible person to share your big idea with, who then discourages you. Or telling yourself you're going to make time for something and then putting too many things on your schedule. And pessimism, which is talking yourself out of a dream by saying, well, be realistic. What are the chances that's going to happen? I'm not capable. So to go back to cue, routine, reward, think about this for a second. So you have a client, they have a big goal. They feel stress about that big goal because they're not getting out of that part. Stress is fear. They go into a routine of perfectionism. And then they get the reward of feeling temporarily in control because they went, well, I got to do it perfectly. And then they feel kind of in control because they tried to do it perfectly. But of course, perfectionism only helps them feel better for a moment. How many times, if you are working with clients, have you seen this? Client has a big goal. Then they go into a routine of people pleasing. Now's not the right time. My husband really needs me. Helps them to feel safe. They don't have to feel the stress of going after that big goal. So if you can help your clients to identify, hey, stress, the cue that you feel about this big goal, never going to get out of that part. There is no fearless. You're going to feel some stress when something really matters to you. Let's be clear. You're going into your routine again. Pessimism, self-sabotage, people-pleasing, perfectionism. Let's interrupt that routine. Because if you follow that fear-based routine, you will only get the temporary reward. You want the real reward, which is to feel more confident, to feel more courageous. People struggle because they're caught in these fear loops. Most people don't struggle because they lack the desire. Most people don't struggle because they lack the know-how. They struggle because they're caught in a fear routine and they might not even realize it. So we're not aiming for fearless. We're aiming to respond to fear with courageous practices. If you have ever read Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit, you will find that he actually says the most powerful place to intervene in a habit loop is not at the cue and not at the reward, it's in the routine. Amazingly, I have seen best-selling authors misquote his book to the point where I literally went and pulled The Power of Habit off the shelf and went and found the page where he talks about the importance of interrupting the routine. So I don't know why there are best-selling books out there that are quoting The Power of Habit and saying, oh, well, you got to interrupt the cue. Great work if you can get it. Great work if you can live a life where you're bubble wrapped from any kind of cue that's going to stress you out and maybe have you go into a fear-based routine. But that is not what Charles Duhigg said. It's not what I find to be realistic. You may want to remove the cue. You may want to dangle a reward in front of your client that's going to be like the best possible reward to motivate them. I think the work is in the routine. You can't eliminate fear. You can't remove all life stressors. Motivation works differently for different people in terms of what reward you dangle, but you can change how you respond. So instead of falling into a fear-based pattern, help your clients to identify when they are in a fear-based pattern and choose a different routine, which is a courage-based response. So what are those courage-based responses you want to know? Well, those are the 4 practices of the courage habit. And when I was writing the courage habit, I narrowed it down to 4 evidence-based practices that help people to become more emotionally resilient and respond to fear with courage. The first one is access the body. Fear is a somatic experience. We don't necessarily change based on what's logical. We change based on how safe we feel. You can't logic your way out of fear. So first, access the body. Use body-based tools like meditation, breathing. For some people, dance. For other people, conscious crying, which is intentionally sitting down and creating a container for just getting some tears out. Movement, taking a walk, breathing exercises. This is a very trauma-informed response as well that gives respect to the fact that when we feel fear, tamping it down and trying to pretend it isn't there isn't helpful for the body. We need a way to metabolize our fear, and that starts with accessing the body. Next one, listen without attachment. This is rooted in narrative therapy, DBT, CBT. So essentially, don't ignore the internalized narrative or the fear-based narrative. Don't try to destroy it. Don't try to tell it to shut up or F off. You listen, but you don't believe everything it says. So you listen without attachment to what it says. I actually believe that one of the most powerful things you can do is listen to what the fear says, but not get attached. That is your resilience against fear in training right there. Fear can't control you if you aren't believing what it says. One more time, fear can't control you if you don't believe what it says. If you are encouraging your clients in your sessions to tell fear to shut up or F off or just don't listen to it, they are going to feel the strain of trying to always tamp down the fear. Instead, teach them, work with them how to listen to the fear but not attach to it. Third practice, reframe limiting stories. Again, this is drawing from CBT, DBT, narrative therapy, ACT, as evidence-based practices. Cognitive reframing is enormously helpful. There's a lot of research on this. You can go into PubMed, free resources online. Essentially, you've got to reframe limiting stories by listening to what the stories are, not getting attached and deciding to reframe them. Shifting the internal stories into something more empowering. The inner critic who has a fear routine of perfectionism and says you have to do it perfectly, your clients need the tool of being able to cognitively reframe and say, actually, I don't have to do it perfectly. Nobody ever does anything perfectly. There is no perfect. What's perfect for one person is not for somebody else. I need to actually root into how do I do it my way. You can even hear in that reframe how much more courageous somebody would really feel if they take that on. And then the fourth practice as part of the courage habit is to reach out and create community. Because fear thrives in isolation and resilience builds in community. I come from a biopsychosocial model, meaning that in my work, I believe that we are a mix of our biology and our genetics and our programming that came into the world with us. We are a mix of our psychology, which is our mental model, and we are a mix of our social world, biopsychosocial. So fear thrives in isolation, resilience builds in community. You need people around you to reflect things back, to challenge your stuck thinking, to walk with you. So imagine that with your clients and that cue, routine, reward loop, if they feel the cue of fear and stress and what if I can't do it, and they start to go into any routines like perfectionism, people-pleasing, pessimism, or self-sabotage, but you have given them a language for articulating this, and they can recognize what their fear-based routines look like, then they can interrupt those routines and decide to do something different. They can decide to go, you know what? I'm in a perfectionist routine right now. Let me access the body. Oh my gosh, I'm going into pessimism. Let me listen without attachment. Let me reach out and create community. Let me reframe a limiting story. How you use this with clients is you help clients identify where they fall into fear routines. You support them in recognizing it, interrupting it, and then practicing these 4 courage habits. And that is how change really starts to happen from a more rewarding place. Progress comes from structure, from community, from gentle self-awareness, not from kicking fear's ass, but from an awareness that fear is relatively predictable in how it will show up for people, and that they have the power and the agency to interrupt it. And if you would like to support your clients, certainly, of course, because I've written the book, I'm going to say, send them to read The Courage Habit. But if you also would like to give them some free worksheet exercises and audio tools, send them over to yourcourageouslife.com/begin. And anybody who's a subscriber can actually get some of the Courage Habit resources. You can't get the book that way, but you can get some accessory resources that people can use to support them in identifying their fear-based routines and how to shift out of that. So I'm excited that the book is out there, and I mean, it's been getting some great press and some great testimonials, and it means everything to me that that's been happening. I'm excited for it to continue to go out into the world. And if you start using it with your clients, I would love to hear how that goes for you. So please reach out, let me know. And I just want to leave you with this one last thought. If you're thinking about how to use this work for yourself, you don't need more motivation. Motivation often burns out. You need better systems. You need systems that support you in doing the growth work that actually gets you somewhere. So a system like replacing fear-based patterns with courage-based patterns, that's the type of system that I'm talking about. And I look forward to hearing how it is that you decide to use this with your clients or with yourself. All right, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Before you go, would you help us out and take a moment to give us a rating in iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening? It really helps us get the word out to other listeners. And before you go today, would you like free resources to support your coaching journey? Whether you're considering becoming a coach or you want advanced coach skills training, access our coaching resource library at teamclcc.com. Again, that's teamclcc.com. Can't wait to connect with you. And again, thanks for listening.